8 American soldiers are dead. Over 1,300 civilians have been killed in Iran, including 200 children. Oil just crossed $110 a barrel, and Iran named a brand new supreme leader, one that Trump said would not be acceptable. We are about 12 days in, and I need to ask you something before we even start. Do you actually know what this war is about? Because I'm not sure the people running it do either. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you're going to know things that most people scrolling their feeds right now might have no idea what is going on. So let me give you about 60 seconds to catch up because some of you are just now tuning in with everything that's happening globally. February 28th, 2026 at about 2:30 in the morning, President Trump posted a video on Truth Social Media announcing that the United States and Israel have launched a joint military operation against Iran. They named it Operation Epic Fury. The justification: Iran's nuclear program, Iran's ballistic missile threat, Iran's support for groups that the US and Israel consider terrorist organizations. But here's what you need to know, and what almost no one is talking about. Just one day before the strike began, Oman foreign minister announced that a breakthrough had been reached. Iran had agreed to never stockpile enriched uranium and to full IAEA verification, right? Peace was described as within reach from what we're seeing reports from Al Jazeera and so on. So one day before the bombs dropped and everything else that's happening in America, the files and stuff like that. So here's my first question for you, and I want you to hold on to your minds as we go through this episode. If diplomacy was working, why did this war start? Now, the human cost, and I'm not letting you skip this one. This is the part that the news gets, cleaned up and sanitized and turned into numbers on a ticker, right? And I refuse to do that. As of today, which is day 12, you can say, Iran has more than 1,300 civilians that have been killed, and nearly 10,000 civilian sites across the country have been bombed, right? Iran's deputy health minister confirmed that among the dead are at least 200 children, okay, and 11 healthcare workers. Victims range in age of 8-month-old to 88 years old. Over 12,000 people have been wounded, mostly from burns and crash injuries. 29 medical facilities have been damaged. 10 of them have been forced to shut down completely. Okay? On the American side, 8 US soldiers have been confirmed killed, with about 140 more wounded. 8 are severely injured. And we mentioned some of their names on our previous episode that we did on the Israel-US war. This war has touched about 17 countries. It's not contained. It never was, okay? And on the other side, at least 13 Israelis have been unalived, you can say, and nearly 2,000 wounded from the Iranian retaliatory strike in the Gulf states like Kuwait, Qatar, and UAE, Saudi Arabia. 17 more civilians have lost their lives, right? And now I have to ask you, when you see these numbers, do they feel real to you? Or have we gotten so numb that we just scroll past it? That we just, our ear just moves along? Okay, we're going to talk about Iran is not backing down. People assumed it would be a quick fight, a quick war, a few strikes, Iran flinches, it's over. That's not what's happening. By March 10th, which was yesterday, US forces have struck more than 5,000 targets inside Iran since the war has begun. At the same time, Iran IRGC launched attacks on at least 27 US military bases across the Middle East, okay, as well as Israel military targets in Tel Aviv and beyond. They hit Al Hudaid Air Base in Qatar, one of the largest US bases in the region. They struck the US embassy in Kuwait. They have targeted Saudi's Aramco's Ras Tanura oil terminal, one of the world's most critical energy infrastructure sites. Amazon Web Services data enters in the UAE, where it was hit by the Iranian drone. And there was some issue with Amazon a couple of days ago. You could not, the website was like down temporarily, right? So overnight going into today, Tehran's Mihrabat airport was bombed, and Iran fired its 37th wave of retaliatory attacks using what the IRGC described as a super heavy Sharar missiles in multi-layered barrage lasting more than 3 hours. Now, 37, you know that's not a country that's surrendering. And here's the thing that seriously needs to be that's being actually underreported. According to Hegoff Organization for Human Rights, which has been doing field documentation on the ground, at least 43,000 people, or 4,300, sorry, people have been killed in the first 10 days of the war, including 390 verified civilians and 3,910 members of the Iranian military and government forces. Now, that number is significantly higher than what officials Iranian media have been reporting, and significantly different than what CENTAM is saying. Multiple accounts, multiple sources, all pointing to the same reality. The human cost is enormous, regardless of which side is taking the toll. Now, here's what I need you to think about. If Iran has been hit this hard, why are they still fighting this intensely? What does that tell you about how this war is going to end or how it's ending? We're going to come back to that, but first, the headlines that changed everything this past weekend. On March 8th, Iran, about 10 days into the war, Iran had named its new supreme leader, right? His name is Mujtaba Khomeini. He's 56 years old, the son of the assassinated supreme leader Ali Khomeini, and he has never held an elected office, right? Never been given public speech and never been seen by most Iranians in public setting to begin with. So what do we know about him? He spent years operating quietly inside his father's office, building influence over Iran's security apprentice, and particularly the IRGC, the U.S. Treasury sanctioned him back in 2019. He's widely believed to have played a role in the violent crackdown on the Iranian protesters in 2009. So, and the selection process itself, it was anything but clean. From what reports are saying, the Iranian International IRGC commanders pressured members of the assembly to experts the votings of Mujtaba. The atmosphere of the meeting was described as unnatural. Those who argued against him were giving, limited time to speak. Discussions were being cut off, and rushed vote was held. So the Trump response, the ABC News said that, Trump has told ABC News that Mujtaba needs approval from the United States or he won't last long, which is like, this has nothing to do with you. But again, United States involved in everything, so I guess it has everything to do with the U.S. And Lindsey Graham, who said that only a matter of time before the supreme leader meets the same fate as his father. So Iran's response to all of that, they went ahead and named him anyway. So you ask yourself this: does a country that named a hardline supreme leader under military pressure sound like a country that's about to surrender, or does it sound like a country that has decided we are not done? Now, enough about that war talk. Things that are starving our wallets, right? Your wallet is already paying for this war. You're not watching the news every night, but I guarantee you have felt this war at the gas pump, at the grocery store, in your 401k, bonds, and all of that stuff. Global energy spikes have sharpened since the conflict began, with oil prices surging past $110 a barrel, driven primarily by the effective shutdown of the Hormuz, okay, which normally carries about 20% of the world's oil supply. Now, the national average for gas has jumped slightly since February 28th. Diesels have surged over dollars per gallon in multiple states. For truck drivers, I know you're not liking this whatsoever. And this is just the beginning, guys, because oil prices affect everything: shipping costs, airline tickets, food prices, every single product that moves on a truck or a plane. Trump posted on his Truth Media that higher oil prices are, quote, a very small price for US to pay and world safety and peace. I don't want my gas prices to be risen. I really don't. Okay. So tell that to the truck drivers. Tell that to the single parent filling up just to go to work. Tell that to the family that was already stretched thin before this war began. That is just a small price. And economically, the timing could not be worse. We were already looking at a shaky job reports, as we mentioned in our last episode. 92,000 jobs lost in February. The Fed is now in an impossible position, right? Oil-driven inflation pushing prices up, while a war-shocked economy threatens to slow growth down. That is a recipe for stagflation and economists are already using that word. Now, because the next thing we're going to talk about what people who fought in American wars have said about this one. And some of it is going to surprise you. What are people saying? What are the citizens saying? What are we saying? Now, here's the thing about veterans in this war debate. They are not monolithic, right? They are not all saying the same thing, and that matters. Republican Congressman Eli Crane of Arizona is the former Navy SEAL. He enlisted the week after 9/11. He had seen what war costs, right? Before the strike began, he was publicly urging cautious, saying that he knows too many Gold Star families and friends who didn't come back home to rush into another long war-drawn Middle Eastern war. He ultimately voted against the war power resolution that would have required congressional approval. Senator McKinney from Illinois, Duckworth from Illinois, who flew Black Hawk in helicopters in Iraq, right? She lost both of her legs when her helicopter was hit by the RPG. She said she ran for Congress specifically for a moment like this one and make sure elected officials fully consider the cost of war, not just in dollars and cents, but she said in human lives. And then we have Brian McGinnis, right? A 44-year-old Marine Corps veteran who served from 2000 to 2004, including a tour in Iraq, right? He was a professional firefighter. He also is a professional firefighter and a Green Party candidate for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina. On the 4th of March, he walked into the Senate Armed Service Subcommittee hearing in his full Marine dress uniform. He stood up and began shouting against the war. Capitol Police moved in to remove him. What happened next was caught on video that went viral instantly. The senator from Montana, Tim Sheehy, I don't know how to say his name properly, a former Navy SEAL himself, stepped in to assist the officers and struggled as they were trying to push McGinnis out of the room. His arm became wedged into the door frame, and it sounded like it was echoing, like his arm broke. Everyone was screaming, his hand, his hand. Someone asked if he was okay, and he said, no, it's not. So he was arrested and transported to George Washington University Hospital. He faces 7 charges, 3 counts of assaulting an officer, 3 counts of resisting arrest and obstruction. So now ask yourself, is that the picture of a country that is united behind this war? A Marine who fought for this country walked into a government building in his uniform to say he didn't want another generation to go to war, and he's left with a broken arm and 7 criminal charges. That is America. Day 12, no clear end goal, no clear exit strategy, and majority of Americans are saying we didn't ask for this. So let me give you a snapshot of where we are as of today, March 11th. Bombs fell on Tehran's Mehrabat airport overnight. Iran launched that 37th wave, as I mentioned to you earlier, retaliatory one basically. Defense Secretary Hegseth has promised this will be the most intense day of strike inside Iran yet. The USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strikes groups is moving closer to combat theater. And Iran now supreme leader has not appeared publicly. He has not spoken, but his selection has sent a louder message than any speech. Oil is $110 a barrel and climbing. 8 American families are grieving. Over 1,300 civilians in Iran are gone. 200 of them were children. And the question that nobody at the top government has answered cleanly is, how does this end? Trump originally said 4 to 6 weeks, then extended that. The goal has shifted from nuclear prevention to destroying Iran's military to what sure sounds like a regime change, even when they won't say these words directly. Now, the world is watching. We're all watching. Anti-war protests have erupted across Europe, United States, Asia, Africa, Latin America. In Pakistan, demonstrations outside U.S. diplomatic building had turned deadly with dozens of protesters killed. War have the tendencies to reach every corner of earth. Okay, so I'm going to end it with this. Not politics, not sides, just humanity. Gulf state families are cleaning rubbles they never asked for. Military families across America sitting in living rooms right now, watching this unfold, wondering if the person is coming home. That is the cost of war. It's always going to be the cost of war. And the people paying it never are the ones who decided to start it. I want you to stay informed. I want you to keep asking questions, especially the ones that aren't being answered. Who benefits? What is the actual exit? Okay? What happens the day after this ends? Because we all deserve answers. Not spin, not shifting explanations, just answers. Now, if this episode gave you something to think about, hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. To Voices with Anisa Qalbi, so you never miss an episode. I leave you on the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fi amanillah. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.